I'm Bonnie with the Carrying On Project, and today we're going to talk about how to use your ring sling. The most important thing to remember when wearing in any type of carrier is that baby should always be visible and close enough to kiss. That means that if you're wearing a very tiny infant, you're going to wear very high up on your chest because you should always be able to bend down and easily kiss the top of their head. That ensures that you can monitor their breathing, and that is very, very important. You want to listen. If they start making a grunting noise or kind of like a snoring noise, that can indicate that their airway has become restricted. You should always be able to get 1 to 2 of your fingers underneath baby's chin and between their chin and their chest. That ensures that their airway is unrestricted. And like we said, as long as they're close enough to kiss, then they're close enough for you to monitor that breathing. You always want to make sure that baby has really good back support, and that's something that we're going to show you how to do a little bit later on in this video. Basically, a ring sling is just a long piece of fabric with 2 specially designed rings on the end. Ring slings can be made out of all different types of fabric, everything from basic cotton and linen fabrics all the way through to one like this that's made from a woven wrap and then converted into a ring sling. Ring slings can be used with newborns all the way up through toddlerhood. They're usually safety tested somewhere between 35 and 40 pounds, but you want to check on the individual specifications for the ring sling that you have. How long you'll be able to wear comfortably will depend a lot on your shoulder strength. It really all depends on how much you can comfortably carry on just one shoulder. For me, that means that I still pop my 30-pound toddler up in a ring sling every once in a while, but only for short trips. Usually when we're going into the grocery store and I just need milk without any toddler shenanigans. But I would be able to carry a newborn in a ring sling pretty much for an indefinite amount of time. To thread your ring sling, all you do is gather the end. Make sure that it's not twisted. You don't want it to look like that. Not twisted. And then we're going to go up through 2 rings and down through 1, just like your belt in middle school. Now, you want to take just a second here and fan out that fabric in the rings. You want to make sure that it's not folded on top of itself or pinched. You want to make sure that it's nice and smooth through there. Now, the reason that you want to do this is that way when you pull on this hem, or it's also called a rail, of the tail, it's going to tighten up this part of the sling. This side will do this part, and so forth, and so on. Now, the genius of a ring sling is really that you can get a very, very customized fit, and the way you do that is by pulling individual parts of the tail and tightening up that corresponding part of the sling. So you very rarely, unless you're just taking up slack, do you want to grab the entire tail and pull all at once. You want to pull a little bit at a time, and that will get the most customized fit that you can get, which is really the strength of a ring sling. You can wear your sling on either shoulder, and in fact, it's really good to alternate back and forth. That way it evens out the strain on your body. However, I've always had a dominant shoulder, and that's just the way it is. I really can't switch back and forth. So what you're going to do is you're going to put the tail of your sling towards the shoulder you want to wear on. I'm going to wear on this shoulder, so I'm putting my tail on that side. Then I'm going to take my opposite hand, go through the sling, up and over my head, and that lands it on the shoulder that I want to wear on. Now, a couple things to remember. You want to make sure that your sling stays out on your shoulder. What it's going to want to do is it's going to want to ride up here, and this is very much like carrying a messenger bag all day. It puts all of the strain on this muscle right here. Whereas if it is spread out on your shoulder, that spreads the weight out across your entire back and really makes it easier to wear. Makes it significantly more comfortable. You also want to start out with your rings high up on your shoulder, because as you tighten, they're going to migrate down, and we want them to end up at about corsage level. Now that you have your sling on, the biggest mistake that I see is that people want to go ahead and put baby in with too much slack, and then they want to grab the whole tail and pull straight down. Now, what that force does, along with baby's weight on the rings, is what locks the fabric in the rings and makes it safe to wear, but it makes it very hard to adjust. So we want to take up as much slack as possible before we put baby in. And a good way to do that is to put your elbow in the sling. Now, to tighten, you're going to start with one of the rails or hems of your fabric, and you're going to pull back across the sling. Not down, not out. This opens the rings and allows the fabric to go through, tightening it up instead of pulling the whole sling around. So, once you tighten up around your elbow, this isn't going to feel like a lot of slack, but babies are actually very small and you'll be surprised. And as you work with it, you'll know more about how much slack you need for your baby at the time that you're wearing them. So once you've taken care of that, then you're ready to put your baby in. Now that you've taken out the majority of your slack, you have your sling positioned out on your shoulder with your rings high, you're ready to put baby in. Now what you're going to do is you're going to put them up on the opposite shoulder from the rings as if you were going to burp them. You're going to take the hand that is on the side with the rings, and you're going to come up underneath the sling. Now you're going to take baby's feet, guide it down into the sling, and then guide their bum into the pocket. Now what we're not going to do is set them on this edge. We're going to set them back into the sling, and that's going to create what we call a deep seat. So we're going to put baby right there. Now, this is where it gets to be a little bit challenging when you are working with a doll, because dolls don't have knees. But what we want to do is we want to put baby in. We want fabric from one knee to the other knee, and we want fabric, that rail, between us and baby. That will ensure that they have a nice deep seat, which makes it safe for them to wear, and so that there's not a fall risk. So the first thing that I do once I get them into that position with their knees above bum and fabric knee to knee, fabric between me and baby, is I grab that bottom rail or the hem and tighten that up. That way they can't, it's harder for them to straighten their legs on top of that seat. So then I'm going to start tightening up through the middle, making sure that they have really good back support like we talked about, especially with infants that don't have that trunk control. You want to make sure you give them lots of good, strong back support. Not so much that they can't breathe, but enough that it supports them so that way they don't curl down, which can make their chin, allow their chin to go down in their chest and affect their breathing. So once I have tightened up nicely through the back, then I'm going to finish by tightening up that top rail. Now, if I have a tiny infant that needs some head support, I can take the tail or a receiving blanket and I can roll that into the top, and that can give a small baby without head support kind of a cushion. And in fact, what I might do is give myself just a little bit more slack in that top rail and allow me to do that. Again, we want to make sure that baby always has fabric from knee to knee, which, like I said, is hard to do with a doll. Deep seat, knees above bum, nice back support, visible, baby should never be covered with the fabric, and close enough to kiss. So that is how you do a front carry in a ring sling. To do a hip carry, your ring sling, you start out very much like you did with the front carry. You want to make sure that you have taken up as much slack as possible, but still left yourself a little bit of room to work with. You want your sling positioned out on your shoulder with your rings up high. Now, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put baby up on my opposite shoulder like I'm going to burp them. And I'm going to come up underneath the sling, guide their feet and bum into that sling. But this time I'm going to position baby with one foot on each side of my hip. Now I'm going to do just the same thing as I did before. I'm going to make sure that I have fabric from one knee to the other knee, which is hard to show with a doll because they don't have knees. But if you have a hard time getting that positioning, a lot of times if you will lean over, that will put baby's weight back into the sling instead of right up on top of you. And you can get their knees bent, you can get that fabric in between the two of you and get that good positioning. And then what I do is I grab that bottom hem or that bottom rail and I tighten that up. Makes it harder for them to straighten their legs and pop that seat. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten up through the middle, make sure they have nice good back support, and then I'm going to set that top rail just like that. They can have arms in or out, that's fine. If their arms are out, you want to make sure that this top rail is snug and that it stays high up on their back, right up underneath their armpits. That keeps them from being able to arch and try to flip out. This is an excellent carry for older babies and toddlers. You want to make sure that they do have some trunk control. So it's a carry for a little bit older than the front carry, which can be used right away. This is a great carry for that time when baby just wants to look around and is not happy facing in all the time. Now, it's not uncommon for babies carried in ring slings to have a mark, a red mark behind their knees when they get out of the sling. It's a lot like a sock mark. As long as it goes away in a short period of time, then it's not a problem. You do want to keep an eye and make sure that baby's feet aren't turning colors. Purple, red, pretty much any color other than normal is that good. If you see that, or if the red line doesn't go away in a reasonable, in a short period of time, then you may just have that bottom rail tightened too much, and you may just want to give them a little bit of slack. And then they should be fine. Nursing in a ring sling is very, very easy. If you are nursing an older baby, like a toddler or an older infant, if you've already got them in a hip carry, it's actually really, really easy. All you're going to do is give yourself some slack, and anytime you give yourself any type of slack, you want to make sure that you support baby's weight, because once you take that tension off the rings, then they can fall. So you want to make sure that you always have their weight. Give yourself a little bit of slack, drop baby down, and just pop in and tighten back up. And you can just nurse right from there. It makes it very easy and very convenient. Now, if you are nursing a newborn, or if baby prefers to nurse in a reclined position, you can do that as well. I will say that we only recommend a recline carry when baby is actively nursing. Once they're done, or if they fall asleep, it's important that you bring them back up and down. It's just hard to monitor their breathing, and it's very easy. It's a lot easier for their chin to fall onto their chest and affect their airway. So we always recommend an upright positioning unless baby is actively nursing. And even if they are nursing, like I said, like I showed just a minute ago, you can do that sitting up as well. So if you're going to nurse in a reclined position, again, you want to make sure that you have baby's weight. Give yourself a little bit of slack, and then you're going to take that seat that they were sitting in and you're going to make a hammock out of it. So you're going to pull that bottom rail up in between you and baby. Feet can be in or out depending on length of baby. If feet are in, you want to be very conscious of where baby's feet are. You want to make sure that they're not twisted or they've got any unusual force on them. So you want to be very conscious of that. So then we are going to drop baby down, and we're going to latch on. Now, you can again do that head support trick with the tail once they get latched on here, just like that. And you're all good to go. You can go either direction. You just flip, make that hammock, and lay them down on this side as well. It's fine if their head is near the rings. Most of the rings are covered with fabric. And if that does bother, you can always take the tail and tuck it around there as well. Again, as soon as baby is finished, you want to put them back upright like this. Again, creating that nice deep seat, which is hard to do with a doll. Nice good back support, and finally snug up that top rail. To take your baby out, you're going to give yourself some slack and open up those rings. Now, before you do that, you always want to have baby's weight supported, because once you take that slack out, they can fall. So you want to make sure you always have their weight. Now, what I do is I grab that bottom ring and I pull up, and that allows the fabric to come through. Then I reach in, put baby up on my shoulder, and I'm good to go. If baby's older, if they're a toddler, if they're walking, then a lot of times you can go out underneath, bend down, take Sling up and over their head, and they're off to do their thing. So that is how to use your ring sling. Thank you for watching, and we appreciate your support of the Carrying On Project.